Cool.
All right. Great, man. We're recording.
Hello.
Do you hear this dog barking?
I do.
Perfect timing. He started right when we started recording. So, good to see you.
Likewise.
Thanks for asking me to do this. I'm such a fan of the movie, so happy to be associated with it in any way. So, I'll ask you, I have a couple questions right now, and and then maybe they'll spark other avenues of conversation.
Cool.
But I was going to ask you how you would describe the tone of Ham on Rye to anybody who has not seen it, in like a few brief words. How do you think of it tonally? How do you bring it across?
Hmm. Um, well, so much of it is retroactively considering the romance of youth, right? So I consider it to be a movie about that point where youth ends and then the next phase begins. And
Mm-hmm.
looking back on it, you feel as a young person so much gravity, so much pull, and for me it was very romantic to move forward. So the tone is very much like a at first very intoxicating, like you're just drawn in an intoxication. It's an excitement really to this point where once you go through this threshold, which the romance is taking you to and your youth is heading
Mm-hmm.
towards, the tone becomes much different, and you
Yeah.
become instantly um, at a loss, and all the romance that it was fueling you gets put to question, and you say, what, why did I want to come here? Why am I here? And it's the discordance between the attraction and then the sort of kind of like meandering, the kind of directionless wandering
Yeah.
uh, when that desire has crested.
Right. Right. And so that basic concept, that was kind of the framework for you, which dictated the energy of the filmmaking for the different parts of the movie, because the movie really kind of shifts
Yeah,
in
yeah,
style throughout. So that was basically your guiding principle, was that arc.
yeah. You know the movie is told in like a mosaic way. You know,
Yeah.
like it's a instead of a straightforward sort of story, it's a collection of all these moments and glances and objects and spaces that kind of collectively tell you something instead of linearly
Mm-hmm.
directly
Mm-hmm.
telling you something. And the idea was because it's very hard to kind of compose something like that. It's kind of abstract. But I
Mm-hmm.
just knew on set, like, okay, we're going towards Monty's,
Mm-hmm.
the delicatessen where all the kids are heading in the first half of the film. So every time we were on set in the first half, I wanted to feel that going towards energy. And it's exciting and it's cool, but it's also a little bit like you don't really know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, you're naive to what's going on.
Yeah.
So
Just
the,
following the
the
herd.
naive excitement,
Yeah.
that naive excitement and that clumsiness. And then
Yeah.
when we were filming things that took place after Monty's, it
Yeah.
was the absence. It was the absence. It was the experience that I understand very well now in my adult life of just not knowing what to do with your like physical body. You just don't know. You're just at a
Yeah.
loss. What do I do?
Yeah. You get launched. You get launched into the world.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you're just there to just spin around in circles, hoping that you're doing the right thing. It's
Yeah.
you know it is.
Yeah. So So that was sort of the seed of the idea of this whole movie, I guess, right? Was that trajectory that we take as human beings. And how did it go from that? How did that idea, that seed, develop? How did you develop this idea, into what became this kind of tone poem? Did you, as you said, it's kind of this mosaic of moments. Did you come up with each moment just individually or based on the people you cast? Did you kind of invent any of it on the day with the cast, or how did it develop into this variety of tones and styles that it became?
Yeah, yeah. Well, this sort of like observational documentary type of filmmaking in like a narrative sense always intrigued me. You know, like
How do you mean?
I always, you know, okay. One time I was walking with my editor, Kevin, and we heard fireworks, and we followed them, and then we ended up at this. high school football like homecoming game, and he was part of the band. He was all nostalgic, and I remember so many funny times of like fights behind the bleachers during these events. So it was a nostalgia trip for both of us. And I asked him then and there, like, if you just filmed, these disembodied images that we're seeing of the kids and the excitement, the parents and the this and the that, and the person behind the concession booth and all this life in this space, when would it get boring? When would you start being like, I'm not interested in this anymore? How long would you stay interested in just these images of life orbiting around?
Without context.
I've just been so interested in this sort of like
Yeah.
recreating that experience that I had there, where I'm just here to look around
Yeah.
and see all of what's that's to see. Like that's to me
Yeah.
so life affirming. So
Yeah.
that has been
That's nice.
a driving force to everything. So at first in the script, you imagine, imagine that image. Wow, do you see
Mhm.
that person sitting by the sprinkler? Wow, it's beautiful. Okay, sure.
Mhm.
Then you cast the person, or you try to cast the person to be by that sprinkler. This is a silly example. And you find all these different faces, and now you have new options, and then you get on set and you have new options, and you're driven by these plans you have, but you're I always remain open for
Yeah.
whatever can be. I mean, note that we made this film for next to nothing, and you
Yeah.
can't be so open when you have
Yeah.
so many people to move, so many locations, got to be there at this time. That person's waiting at that place. We got to go.
Mm.
So
But I think you did an amazing blend with this movie of what you just described, which is a totally relaxing kind of story-free experience in a movie where it's just images, and you kind of like have the feeling of being a little child,
mm,
not quite connected to the world yet, but you're just able to take things in and nothing's expected of you.
that's so cool.
Which reminds me of a couple movies, and there's that one Italian movie that I know you're very influenced by. What was it called? Voices
Yeah,
of
Voices of
Time,
Time. Yeah,
which really is that kind of experience. There's no story.
absolutely.
It's just a wash over you, but it's completely, you know,
Yeah.
incredible and relaxing and poetic and
And
very,
it's a great example of this. It's documentary because in the sense
yeah, it's
that
all real
these are all
life.
non-actors.
Right,
This is all obviously what these people do, but it's also reenacted and contrived and
right,
like
right.
blocking and costuming. I'm sure it's all
Yeah,
preordained for the film. Also, I,
right,
I only saw
right.
that after shooting Hammer.
After him on Rye.
That
That's so
was
interesting.
a crazy experience to find that movie. I realized other people are having the same
Yeah,
impulses as me in time, which was really
yeah.
it was
But
affirming.
then, but then with him on Rye, you do have a track that you're on, and that keeps you kind of leaning forward as an audience member, and it also kind of sneaks up on you. It's sort of a backdoor way of telling a story because you don't really realize until sometime like three-quarters of the way through the movie or something that actually everything has been going in a direction,
Mm,
and you start to suspect that even before it's confirmed, and then it
right,
starts to kind of be confirmed, and then you realize you've been told a story, but in a way that
right.
was very, seamless and unsuspecting.
Yeah. Well, that's to me the only way I can conceive of people remaining interested in a film like this.
Yeah,
Is that you are gradually learning, and that's
yeah,
obviously
yeah. It's revealing itself.
exactly. I love that. I
Yeah,
absolutely love that, and that's also form fitting. I think because that's
yeah,
you are gradually learning the piece
yeah,
this puzzle of your life as you go on. Like new people.
yeah.
Whoa.
Absolutely. It's
Yeah,
yeah.
there.
That's totally right. But I think one of the most exciting things for me about watching him on Ride the first time was kind of learning the language of the movie, which is a different kind of language, I think, than any other movie I've seen. And that's exciting. I think that's really satisfying, for my brain watching this movie. It's just like, wow, this is a whole, a new kind of story being told to me. So I wanted to ask you a little about the actors who are so wonderful, and there's a lot of them. It's a huge cast. It must have been a big group of people. It must have been a lot of fun. But how did you find a lot of these actors, and how did you work with them? Did you work with? I guess a lot of them are non-actors. And did you work with certain actors, differently than other ones, like kind of based on their personalities and what they responded to, and what you got out of them, or what was that process like? How did you get these performances?
Right. So the casting process for this film was very extensive, and in fact, the pre-production process on the whole was about 7 or 8 months. So, gave us
Wow.
a lot of time to
Yeah.
cross every T and dot every I. Like everything had
Hmm.
like a backup plan. You know, like we were
Right.
really, really uh, cautious about the whole production. Again, it was on
Yeah.
a dime. Like when people say micro budget, they mean like this much, and we're shooting this much.
Yeah.
But anyway, I've been making these small films in LA for about 5 years, 4 years maybe, even before shooting Ham on Rye.
Short films.
Short films, and one of them was like a web series that was like a kid show,
Right.
which actually I cast Haley, the lead of this film, in when she was 12, and actually that casting decision was made off of a headshot. Um,
Right.
I just saw this emotional depth in her eyes and this kind of sadness, and I was, yep, there she is. Anyway, through these casting, what would I call them? I guess companies in LA, like LA Casting that everyone knows. But there was
Yeah.
one uh, company called Cast with a Z, and it was always a mystery how they remained in business, and now they're out of business. But the
Hmm.
idea was that you can cast for free if you give the actors feedback,
Right.
like 2 sentences of feedback. So we saw thousands of people through this institution. We were casting in
Wow.
there like for weeks and maybe even months.
Yeah.
And the idea was simple: that once someone walked in the room, you know, if you felt something, like physically, like whoa, then they're in the film.
Hmm.
They're in, and it doesn't matter how. Like we had ideas of the characters. We saw the kids read the dialogue, and we were like, oh, we can't force any of this. This is not gonna. No one's gonna be able to give a curveball and then a change up. You know, like that's not gonna
Yeah.
be realistic.
Right.
Maybe some,
Right.
but most
Right.
of these non-actors, most of these teenagers, or most of these new actors,
Yeah.
uh, we have to take them as they are and
See where they fit.
see where they fit, and also see
Yeah.
what it is that's so lovely about them, and showcase that. You know, I think that's one of the biggest things you need to learn at making films on a small budget and any other budget really is how can you honor this person's humanity. So as soon as they came to the project, we I mean, they were so the people we chose were so irresistible to us in the way that they were fun and vulnerable,
Yeah.
and just you know tender. That
Yeah. Yeah.
it wasn't hard, I don't think, to show that.
It's amazing how full of those, personalities the movie is. It's just teeming with these people that you
That's
feel
great.
your affection for.
That's great to
You
hear.
know.
No,
Yeah.
that's a beautiful thing. Oh, and you asked how I work with them. And I think one of the
Yeah.
noteworthy things is that no one involved in making this film was aware of the whole story. In fact,
Right.
everyone who was working on it only knew their own screen pages.
Right.
Or, for example, my friend and one of the few um, cast members who is just a friend of mine is named in the film Sloan, and in real life his name's Cole Devine. He's a musician in a fantastic band called Gold Cage. They're very good.
Right. And they did some of the music in the movie, right?
No, actually, but a
Oh,
lot of
that's
my
a
friends,
different guy.
including myself, we did music for the film, but
Yeah.
actually not
I'm
Cole.
thinking of the wrong person. I'm thinking of the guy with the wig.
The guy with the wig, yeah, that's my AD, David Crowley Broyles, who is
Right.
producer, AD, actor,
Yeah.
composer. He's Renaissance man.
Yeah. Right.
But anyway, for this character of Sloan, he's unique because he bridges both worlds, and
Oh,
he's more experienced. You know,
yes. Sloan is the guy who works at the gas station
he works at Monty's. He's in the gas station scene.
and he burns his guitar strings.
Exactly.
Sloan,
Exactly.
right? Yeah. It's great. This
So
guy. Yeah.
so I wanted to have more consciousness about the whole experience because he's
Right.
weighed by the consciousness, so he saw most of the script.
Funny. Wow.
I was actually for each character, I
Wow.
had to decide how much consciousness they would have of the whole.
That's really
Most
smart.
of them had nothing. Most of them had nothing, and they were
Yeah.
like, some people were really off put by that, but most were just like, whatever, you know. And most were trying to share information on set, like to figure out the story, like, what do you know? What do you know?
That's great.
It was fun.
And so, would you instruct any of them? Would you Would you say I kind of want you to do it a little more like this, or would you like perform things yourself the way you wanted them to do it? You know, like the guy practicing in the bathroom how to say hi or
Yeah,
speak to people.
that guy's
That
magical.
guy, he's amazing.
He's amazing. Yeah, actually, he's a great example of someone who. So our philosophy for this film was no one is an
Yeah,
extra, right?
right.
And because we wanted to just find, maybe we'll find something with them. Maybe they'll become a character. Like maybe they'll become a prominent character. And he's
Yeah,
an example of someone who we brought on,
he just rose to
got
the
a character
top.
name. Just here's Jonathan on set, and he ended up being so endlessly interesting and fun.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
he was jogging around, like they're in the parking lot before they go into Mozzie's, and
Yeah,
I don't know how much we actually edited this into the film, but he's just incessantly jogging around the environment, which is so funny to me. Yeah, but I didn't
that,
give him like any specific
no,
performance notes. He
that's
yeah,
just
kind of
him.
wave, like just basic actions that he just
Wow,
intuitively got. Yeah,
that's just him.
that's just him.
Well, he's very very memorable. He really makes a big
And
mark.
he's great. And he said
So
at the end, he's like, my mom said, like, I told you, son, like they try to put you as an extra, which we never said that. But you became the lead
they
role.
tried. They're always trying to squash you down, but
He's like, but I became the lead role, or something like that, and we were just like, that's so sweet.
he's not that far off. He's definitely one of the faces that really
Many
sticks
cite him
with you.
as their favorite.
Yeah. Well, you already talked about the budget that you made this for, which is just staggering for anybody who's ever worked in film in any capacity. But it was like $20,000 that you
It was between
made this
20 and
whole film
30,
for.
like 20,
20 and 30,
24, 25.
which is
And
incredible because there's so it's so aesthetically uncompromising that it feels like you would have made. I mean, I don't know what you would have done with more money, but it feels like this is a very respectable result for like a $300,000 budget. So I mean I don't even know what you could say about that, but how did you do that? Just
yeah,
through
yeah,
intense preparation and
yeah. I
and
think the answer is
cast.com.
I think the answer is maybe twofold, maybe threefold. But
Yeah.
for one is yes, the 7-8 month period of pre-production. It's like 100% necessary for this kind of, because low budget films are not new, and they're not new to common knowledge. Everyone knows 2 or 3 films that are made on a dime that are awesome films. We all love them, but the generality between those films typically is that they really utilize the low budget as like a very integral element of the storytelling. It's gritty. It's just friends. It's almost like a informal. This was far from what we wanted for Ham on Rye. We
Mm-hmm.
were really striving for, like, you know
Yeah.
Cirque. We love the classic Hollywood.
Yeah.
Um,
And you feel that. You feel that.
yeah,
It's
absolutely. The dolly. We love the
yeah.
like the tripod. Oh, I love the
Yeah.
tripod. I wish more people would bring it back.
Yeah.
Bring it back. It's a really good tool.
Yeah.
But there's this pre-production period that where you can really make sure everything is
Lined
almost
up.
immaculately uh,
Mm-hmm.
pre-planned, so you can allow yourself to do this on set. And then the
Yeah.
other thing is, we had so much like human resources on this film. What I noticed in LA is that most people that work on this film are from my college, actually, and most of them are living insanely successful professional lives. And the other part of that is many of them started to realize that, okay, now I'm finally doing this for money. Like, I don't work on projects for free anymore, or for cheap. But then I think a lot of people realize that, oh, but all these projects I'm working on are meaningless. Like,
Mm.
this doesn't make me feel good about like my
Yeah.
life, this thing I have to do. So I
Yeah.
think that Ham on Rye was actually really such a
Nourishing experience.
nourishing meaning. Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah. I
goes a
think
long way. Yeah.
those two things, and then
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, those two things really. The people, my team, they're so amazing. They're
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
That's great, man. Well, I think basically we covered all my questions. I just have one more question, but you might have already answered it. But the final movie, is it sort of You know, the one that you set out to make in your mind, or are you in any way surprised at what it became and kind of, you know, did you
Mm.
kind of find it as you went in any way, or find it afterwards?
Yeah, well, the first script had a different. The first script even had like a year later. I don't think I've ever said this in an interview before,
Mm,
but the first script had like a year later, and then we follow Haley and Sloane, and they're like dating or whatever. It was much different.
right.
And then halfway through this 7 month production process or something, I realized, oh, it's just 2 days. So
Right.
that was a huge
Wow.
difference between
That's
the onset and the out. Even
yeah.
though we were built much of the pre-production on this ladder.
Wow.
Yeah, not former, but the latter conception of the film.
Mm,
But the other thing is that I kind of realized at one point that the second half was going to have to be loose, and it was going to have to be malleable to what we shot, what we would get on set, and what we would find in the edit. So I did realize
mm,
going into this that although all
mm.
of it's scripted, that we would have to probably leave some scenes behind and probably find some like hypnotic rhythms in places we didn't suspect, and those did end up happening.
Yeah. 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 Well, the famous speech in the car was a totally spontaneous thing, right?
Totally spontaneous.
Like different every take, wasn't it?
Different every take, and also it was known that he was going to do his thing there.
Mm-hmm.
Like it
So
might
just
have
leave a
been
spot there.
Billy X, like in the dialogue.
That's great.
Yeah,
I think that's a good technique, you know, because it's very, very alive, and it does feel like you're discovering it too as you went.
that was such a fun day to shoot. Oh my god, Billy is a mastermind. He's actually, I think he's the most brilliant person I know, honestly.
He makes an amazing mark in this movie too.
Like he just improvised that, and if you really go through all the separate, it's kind of a perfect microcosm of the whole film. What he does, it's just like these little fragments that are
Yeah,
funny and silly, and they
that's
actually
right.
collectively,
Yeah,
coherently become a
yeah,
statement about the disenchantment that the film has.
yeah. And they can mean different things to different listeners, like the movie. I
Yeah,
think
absolutely, absolutely. And also, he
the
didn't.
movie can affect you.
I don't know if he read the script even. I don't know where he got that from. He's
That's just
crazy.
him.
He's crazy.
Well, great man. I think you should be so proud of it. It's got to be the best movie that came out in 2020.
Well,
Can't
old
think of
quote.
any competition. And yeah, thanks for making it. And I hope a lot of people find it and see it and love it.
Thank you so much. I really do.
Yeah. All right, bud.
All right, let's hit no record now.
Let's hit no record.